Well, hello everybody. Thank you for coming out. It's good to see you. I've seen a couple familiar faces. Met you before. I met you earlier. But my name is Mike Gagan. I'm with the Fender Custom Shop. I'm out from Corona, California. This is Masterbuilder Paul Waller. He works in the custom shop in Corona, California as well. We have Brian Moletti, who's my counterpart in Scottsdale. We both handle the sales end of things, and Paul builds all the beautiful guitars. So we get to sell them, makes it real nice. We have a presentation ready to give everybody, but we also want to make sure everybody knew it's more of a conversation as far as much of a presentation. So if anybody has any questions, just feel free to pop up and ask them. You know, that's.
How's Abigail doing?
She's doing well. Let Paul answer that. He's been working with her.
Yeah, she actually has done a couple projects in her retirement for us. One of which was the George Harrison tribute Telecaster that I did. And she did, so all 100 guitars came with the Abigail hand wounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
She's busy in retirement.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was her own asking. You know, she said, yeah, I wouldn't mind. This is my hobby. This is what I do. I don't want to just sit around and not do anything. And then she's able to, you know, make a little extra cabbage to take the grandkids to Disneyland, because I don't know if you guys heard, Disneyland's like way too expensive.
Is she able to sign those? Or
Oh, yeah.
they are? Okay, that's
Yeah,
pretty
they're
cool.
all signed and dated.
Yeah,
She
pretty
does every bit of it. The only thing with the Harrison is I sent her bobbins that were already put together and lacquered, potted, and then she spins them and solders them, puts the covers on, all that stuff.
Yeah. Didn't Scott Buell make her a custom winding machine?
Yeah, she's got her own little machine at home. Her work machine was handed down to Josefina, who now operates that same machine under, you know, Abby's training. So that's what we do. We just pass the torch, and you know, most of the people in the I always make the joke, I'm the new guy in the custom shop. I've only been there 14 and a half years. And that's the truth, is so many people there have such a legacy, and there's even generational legacy that goes on within the Fender factory walls. So
Yeah.
just to be a part of it's kind of a huge deal. But yes, Abby does. And there's also the 30th anniversary, which we'll be talking about here tonight. One of the models, the JW, I think it's the JW Black, that has the gold 50s set.
Yep.
Those are all hand wound by Abby.
Yeah. Basically, the Fender factory is, I mean, going back to when Leo was starting it, it was kind of it was sort of a custom shop even back then. You know, Leo was always coming up with new ideas, new innovations, and putting them together. And basically, to me, he hit the ball out of the park 4 times, right out of the gate, the first 4 times at bat, between the P-Bass, the Telecaster, the Stratocaster, and then the Jazz Bass. I mean, those are still very, very strong models today, and they're just beautiful guitars still to this day. So, you know, during this presentation, you know, we'll discuss some artist builds. We'll go through on how you can order a custom guitar. We'll have some Q&A for Paul, and again, if you have questions before that, just feel free to pop up and ask. There's a lot of Western swing bands that came through back in the day, and Leo was always looking for feedback. A lot of the swing band guys, they were playing the steel guitars, and that's what he was starting out building. And then as he started going into making the other, like the Telecaster and whatnot, he's getting feedback constantly. You can see here he's with Freddie Tavares, and then I'm not sure who the 2 gentlemen on the right and the gentleman on the left is, but you know, again, visiting the factory, sitting down, discussing new models that were coming out, giving their give and take on it. So in '87, Bill Schultz decided he wanted to start a custom shop, and he already knew Fender was a super strong brand because he was working with them since '81 or so, and then he got the guys together to buy it back in '85. And he saw there was a lot of companies out there that were, there was a void. There was a lot of companies kind of taking Fenders and customizing them and whatnot. So he wanted to go ahead and be the forefront of that. You know, he looked at that, rightly so, as that's my product. I want to make sure that we put out the very best that there can be. So in the past 30 years, as Paul said, he's the new guy. He's been here for about half of that. I've been there for roughly the same amount of time. We've seen so many changes, and previous to that there were so many. But to celebrate the 30th anniversary, they came up with a really cool idea, was to bring back 8 of the master builders that were formidable in the early part of the custom shop. And they design guitars. The team builders will build 30 of each one. Some of them are already here. Actually, there's a couple over there. There's a Mark Hendrick Sparkle over there. There's a Mike Stevens up here. There's a John Page here. We'll show you a little bit more on those later. But it's a great thing because we got to see a lot of them come back into the shop while they were working with the team builders and the people in manufacturing to, get the tooling up when needed and things like that. So it's really cool. So you can see there's the lineup of the 30th anniversary guitars. You got the Mike Stevens, which is a physical right up here. Same with the John Page. George Blanda with his custom designed Jazzmaster pickups and the infused burl wood on the pickguard and the fretboard. The Fred Stewart, which he told me he wanted to make, he was very influenced by Martin in his designing on this one especially. So you'll see a lot of Martin appointments that show up on this Telecaster. Plus it's beautiful and it plays wonderfully. So the J Black Tele, that's the one Paul mentioned earlier, that's got the Abbey hand-wound pickups with the gold magnets in them, like a 50 style, which that's right in Abbey's wheelhouse. The Mark Hendrick, he said that's a lot of the influence of that came from like Orange County in the 60s and 70s type of a lowrider type of culture. You can see it up close over there.
Yeah, Surf Burst. I apprenticed for Mark, and Surf Burst was always one of his favorite colors, and so it wasn't surprising that he picked that for his finish.
Yeah. And when you look at it sideways from here, that light hitting it, it's just, it's pretty stunning. The next one is Alan Hamill. Alan's one of my favorite people. He's one of those, he's just truly just about as genuine a person as you can ever meet. And every time I talk to him, I learn something. He's, you always have people like that you run into in your life. Alan's one of those. That guitar is just stunning in its playability, the special wiring that he's got on it. And then there's the Gene Baker. He did like a kind of a Strat Tele one. Those will be shipping in another couple months, another 6 weeks or so. Kind of a Strat headstock with a Tele headstock cut out on the top of it. Sort of Strat on the top, Tele on the bottom, kind of a thing. So the Tele Pickup, which is pretty cool. So at any rate, that's the 30th anniversary design. Again, it was a real feel-good thing for all of us at the shop because we got to see a lot of our heroes come back and do something, and it was just, it just was great. One of the guys in Scottsdale said it was like the Blues Brothers movie. We're getting the band back together, which I thought was pretty cool as a good way to put it. Next, I'm going to talk about the Dream Factory. The Custom Shop earned that kind of a nickname through a book that had come out, and previous to that, they were basically, if you can dream it, we can build it, and that's about 99% true. Certain things we can't make like a Gibson Les Paul, that just wouldn't be right, So our mission is to build the best and to be a vehicle for artists and customers who want to get something built for them. And one of the things that one of the guys that used to work there used to tell me was that we are the only true custom shop on the planet of this caliber, to where we can take any of our own product and customize it to what you would like. So we were discussing earlier, Dave, you were having problems with the weight of the guitars. You can just order a special guitar that's just very light in weight, whether it's chambered, whether it's a very light ash body or something like that. Any color you want, that's, we can even do custom colors if you've got the extra money for that type of thing. You can have a guitar built by Paul. Paul will call you and go over the specifications of the guitars, the guitar that you have on order, and, make any recommendations or any changes that you'd like. And it is a bit of a dream factory, I think. So there.
Yeah, it's very rare that I build the same guitar.
Yeah.
I would say the only time I do is when either it's a tribute thing where I'm building the same one over and over again, like this Bob Bain.
Yeah.
Or a reorder off of somebody saw a picture on Instagram that I built a guitar that they liked, and they said, "Hey, send me one of those." Okay.
Yeah, the Instagram accounts have gotten really popular.
Yeah, that seems to be our biggest tool right now for getting the stuff out there quickly is Instagram, because it is just mostly picture based. Us guys, we eat that up, because there's not a whole lot of language in there that we have to sort through, and so the barrage of pictures that come from both the Fender Custom Shop page and our individual pages as builders has really exploded to where it's become kind of a marketing tool for us individually.
Yeah.
To be able to post stuff that we're making as it's being finished, which is kind of weekly or monthly.
Yeah, it's like a DIY kind of for each builder, and they each all have a huge following. And as Paul mentioned, I'll get an emailed guitar, picture of a guitar for me, and I can usually see from whose bench is on the backdrop, who made the guitar. So you brought up the Bob Bain earlier. Now Bob Bain this is a 30-piece run that you.
Yeah, this is very limited, 30 pieces. This is actually one of the first pieces that left the shop, and I thought, what a great place to really bring it out and show it off. It has been photographed and put online, but this is one of the first to the store.
Yeah.
So, those of you who don't know who Bob Bain is, he's an early Hollywood session player. Recorded a lot of the early Hollywood theme songs for the TV shows and movies. Most notably, he played the riff you hear on Peter Gunn is this guitar playing that kind of freight train of a riff.
Yeah.
A lot of it was written by Mancini. He was hired to come in and play it. And so what you're hearing on the albums, all these theme songs like the MASH theme song, and there's a list of all these songs that we've all heard before. It's coming out of this guitar, so it's kind of an amazing thing to be able to sit down with Bob. He's 92 years old, and he has had hip surgery, but he still tries to play out jazz clubs once a week if he can, if he's feeling up to it. And he was also Johnny Carson's The Tonight Show guitar player for 30 years that they were on air. Basically retired now, as he should be, but he's still playing jazz.
Yeah.
And so I was able to actually sit down with Bob and discuss the guitar and kind of the history behind it, how it became what it is now. Obviously, it's kind of been hot rodded with the Bigsby, the B16, and that was done in late '53 or early '54. So that's a pretty early customized Tele right there. And then the pickup came from he had a friend that was working at Gibson at the time, and he said I got this new pickup. It's it's going to be in production soon, but here, just try it. So this is the pickup that's in his guitar is actually a really, really early PAF before they actually started manufacturing it. It was like almost a prototype version. So that in itself is another really cool thing for the guys that are really into the PAF pickup. And then he used the neck pickup a lot for recording because he was a jazz guy, and that's what the Bigsby and all that stuff was helping him kind of transition from a big box guitar to electric. And he's telling me that I needed this. This was a perfect tool for me because I could just take this to the studio and plug it in, and I was ready to go. I didn't have to carry around two other guitars because I could do the electric stuff that everyone was starting to want, and I had the jazz tones that everyone was looking for also. So
what did it start out as?
it was a 1953 Telecaster. He bought it used. It was about 6 months to a year old, so it was basically brand new. I have him still looking. He hasn't shown it to me yet, but he has the original bill of sale for the guitar somewhere. And then Tiny Tidwell was the one that was talking to him about modifying it, put the Bigsby on it and stuff. So we actually had Bigsby send him the kit, which came with, it has an aluminum shim in it. These kits came with the shim for the Fender specifically to tilt the neck for the floating bridge. Later on, guys were pinning the bridges and stuff to keep it from moving around, but at the time, the technology it was a floating bridge, just like any arch top. And so when you do take the strings off, that thing comes flying off. But that was its intended purpose for intonation. So it has the shim, and guitar's all original with the exception of the neck pickup and the Bigsby. And his guitar has no serial number on it because the serial number's on the bridge plate on the early Teles.
Yeah.
There was a blank neck plate, so I just put my logo neck plate on there with the serial number. That's how it was decided to do the guitar. So as the guitar exists, it has no serial number. So he has the part somewhere. I don't know where it's at. It's kind of buried away in his house. But really cool guitar, really cool story. And then one of the other things I wanted to point out about this is Bob played sitting a lot. He would wear a strap, but most of his gigs were played sitting. Even when he was in the movies, there was a couple of movies where he was playing in the big band, and he was in the background of the actors dancing or whatever. And he's always seated, or when he's recording, he's seated. So it had a great deal of wear in the waist just from sitting and playing all the time. So I just thought that was really cool, something to point out.
Yeah, that is
That
cool.
you know, it's not something we see a lot on the relic stuff that we do. You know, it's usually the heavy arm wear and belt buckle rashes and stuff. Not a whole lot of that. This is heavy wear in the waist.
Yeah,
So.
that's a lot of playing right there.
Yep.
It's a lot of gigs on the. He's probably wearing slacks, you know.
Yeah. And so that's the Bob Bain. Only 30 available worldwide.
Yeah, that one sold out quick too. It was as soon as we released it, it was gone. So that's really nice that it showed up here.
What are you using for a humbucker in the ones you make?
I employed Seymour Duncan with the 59. Couple of reasons. It's relatively close to what the original is, and I say relatively because everything's machine wound now. Even the aftermarket companies are doing machine wound. As you know, we talk about hand wound pickups. Well, all those pickups originally were done by hand, so there's a difference in the coil. When you think about a coil and it canceling, when a machine does it and they're exactly the same, you get this kind of sterile pickup that it has just kind of like a basic frequency response. There's nothing dramatic and high or low, but when you have a hand wound, you get these spikes of highs and lows, and that's what we like. We like all that noise and stuff. That's why when we talk about hand wounds versus machine wounds will get you in the tone, in that range of being whoever you want to be or sound like, but you're not going to get those spikes that we like. It's the spice in the food that makes it so good for us. So to me, for it to be proper, it would have to be hand wound. It's a machine wound pickup, but it's also to the spec, and it's probably the most well known and recognized as close to a PAF. And you know, I have it in stock, and so it just made sense to use the Seymour Duncan.
Yeah. And Bob liked the tone of it too, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was actually really particular about the color. That was really my only redo was the color. The original prototype was kind of dark. Took it to his house and put them side by side, and he said, "No, the color's off a little bit." I was like, "Yeah, I can totally tell." But when you're doing it by pictures on your bench, and you have a computer monitor, and that's your, you know, you're like, "Yeah, that looks right," and the
Yeah.
shading was right, but the actual color itself was a little off. So I had to go a little lighter. But you'll notice that there is some kind of bursts of darkness, and that's how the guitar is. It had some heavy tinting in certain areas. And I asked Bob, you know, normally this stuff gets tinted heavily from cigarette smoke, or if it's in fluorescent light or out in the sunlight, UV. And he said, I didn't smoke, but everyone around me did.
Yeah. That's why he's 92.
So where he touched it, it's fine, but where he wasn't touching it, it got dirty and smoky. So.
Wow, that's I never thought about that. That's cool.
Usually it's the other way around. You know?
Yeah,
But, yeah, it was a great project working with Bob, and he's a fabulous human being. And, I can have Mikey plug it in and play it for you if you want. If you want to hear it.
Okay. Well, let's wait a little bit. I wanted to ask you a couple more artist things, but we'll definitely go back to that. I'm not
Okay.
going to pass that out.
All right.
So I played it just a little bit earlier, but I want to play it again. So now you've built for actually quite a bit of artists, since even being the new guy.
Yeah.
What was the last big one that you did, or that most sticks into your mind?
Well, there's been a couple that have been huge for me. The first real big one was Nile Rodgers, because he wrote all these songs. He's produced all these tunes that we've all heard, and we're like, wow, I didn't realize Nile did all that. You know, this body of work that he has is huge.
Yeah.
And how he does it too is pretty simple. He has his 59 Strat, and he goes to the studio and he doesn't go into an amp or any pedals, he goes straight into the board. So what you hear on just about every recording is the neck pickup on that Strat plugged straight into the board.
Wow.
And that's how he rehearses for all of his stuff. And it's just so impressive to think that without too much of the voodoo and the smoke and the mirrors, he's been able to do all that stuff, and you know, he's been pretty successful at it. It's notably recognized as his guitar. They call it the hit maker because it's written the most amount of music in dollars, that guitar, than any other guitar, and that's pretty impressive when you think about the other heavy hitters that are out there. So it was like a deep vow to be able to work with Nile and on the hit maker. And then I do a lot of work with Keith Richards. I spent a lot of time with them when they come out to rehearse in LA. And so I've been doing a lot of Tele stuff with Keith. One of my favorite stories to date is Abby's last day when she retired. I asked her, what she worked right next to me. She was like my grandmother, you know, and I saw her every day and I miss her to pieces. But I asked her, what would you want to do on your last day at work? And she thought about it. She goes, let me get back to you. And I go, okay. And at the time I was working with Keith. They were in town for a couple of shows in Anaheim. And I had talked to Pierre about maybe seeing if, you know, Abby wanted to come to the concert or something. Abby says, I want to go to a rock show. I haven't been to a rock show. I said, I got just the one for you. So Keith sent a black car to pick her and her family up from the factory on her last day of work, and she made her last pickup to Keith. And it's a spec pickup. It's the exact spec as Macabre. One of the things I was working on was making the pickup sound like Macabre, because he doesn't have any other guitar to replace that guitar. There's only one guitar that makes that noise for Keith and all the guitars that he has. And he's got a lot of Teles. That's like his favorite thing. He has nothing else that sounds like it. So I was employed to come in and take a guitar apart and make sure that I could replicate those tones for him. So I did, and used Abby to hand wind the pickup to do it. So without Abby, I couldn't have done what he needed, and he obviously was very happy with all that. So he invited Abby and her family to come out on her last day of work for her retirement party to come to the show in Anaheim. And I'm not allowed to show them to you, and probably shouldn't even be talking about, but there's pictures of Keith and Ronnie kissing Abby on the couch in the green room. It made her day, so she was really, really happy. So her last pickup went to Keith, and she signed it.
Yeah. All right. Well.
So she liked the show though, right?
Yeah, I think she had a pretty good time.
Yeah.
And she got really dolled up. She had this red sequin top on, and she had to go home and do her hair. She was like, no, I'm going home and changing first. And
Yeah.
so yeah, she had a really good time. So she still talks about it once in a while.
So you've also you worked with Danny Harrison on the George Harrison Tele.
Yep. Last year I finished up the 100 pieces. I spent pretty much the whole year just building rosewood Tele rosewoods for the Harrison tribute. And Danny flew myself and the artist relations cat out to Friar Park, and we actually got to go to the castle and see the collection and take the guitar apart there, which was kind of like a best day at work story kind of thing. Besides the Chicago pizza I had today for lunch, that was the second best day at work. And, so, you know, we put all the myths to bed about that guitar, because a lot of people said it had vintage tuners. No, it didn't. It had F gears, and there was no other set of gears on there. And you know, a lot of people say it was solid, and it's not. It's chambered. It's actually chambered.
Yeah.
And Delaney had kind of done some bad things to the guitar, and it's since been repaired back to its kind of original George condition, I call it. So we decided to build the guitar as it was when it left George's hands, not after Delaney destroyed it, in our opinion. And it took some work for Danny to get it back in his collection. He really wanted the guitar back in his collection after his father passed away. So he fought and finally got the guitar back. It took him a great deal of money and effort to get it home. Yeah. And so we made a 100-piece run of, we did it Closet Classic, because it was basically only played in the studio, and that rooftop concert, that was the last he really used the guitar, and then he gave it away. So we wanted to kind of make sure that we were giving everyone the George version of it, because that's what everybody wanted, not the Delaney version of it, the George version of the guitar. So,
Yeah, that's what's made it. That's what it's known for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's funny. It's because all this time I was one of the people that thought it had vintage tuners, and then I finally found it was part of a video where he was playing on the rooftop, and he spun around, and I think I sent you the picture, but a long time ago. But he spun around, and then I got a screenshot of it, and it was definitely F gears that were on there, without a doubt. So, but like Paul said, there was lots and lots of different things. It had even come into the shop previous, but by the end there were different tuners on it, and there were all kinds of holes drilled in the back, and it like Paul said, it was in pretty beat up condition. So
I had heard that there were only 2 of those guitars made.
Yes,
More
so
mythology there. Can you clear that up?
yeah, in R&D at the time, which was kind of the custom shop previous to the actual custom shop, it was asked that a rosewood Strat and a rosewood Tele be made. One was to go to George, the Tele was to go to George, and the Strat was to go to Hendrix.
yeah.
So the kid that was in charge of this project, he made 2. And I'm not sure if he was told to make 2 or he decided to make 2, but the idea was to make 2 and pick the best one and give it to the artist. And so he made 2 of each. And as far as I know, I don't know where the other Tele is. No one seems to know where the Strat that was intended for Harrison, but we believe that the second one that never was supposed to see the light of day ended up in a collection in New York. And it's in the basement of some vintage guitar collector in New York. That's the closest thing I've gotten to a legitimate answer of where the guitars went. So obviously the Tele that went to George, we know where that's at. It's in Friar Park, where it belongs, in my opinion. And the Strat, I have no idea. And they were a little bit different than the production versions. So those that claim they have it and they show pictures of it, it's like, no, that's not it. Because it has a skunk stripe. That's not the guitar.
Exactly.
Production versions had a skunk stripe and a walnut or maple button plug.
Yeah.
So that's usually the dead giveaway. And I've seen many people claim that they have it. Oh, this is the one. This is the one. It's like, no, that's the production version that came out in the early 70s.
Yeah.
Got a question. You mentioned the Instagram and everybody having their followers. I've been to the Gibson factory before, and they made me put my camera in a bag, and I could not. It was very strict about what they could do. So I was wondering if legal at Fender watches the Instagram closely to make sure that you're not giving away any trade secrets.
Yeah, the only thing that we're not really allowed to show you is our relicing process. That's our only proprietary information. Obviously, you go to any store and the most copied guitar you're going to see is a Strat or a Tele or a P bass or a Jazz bass, and it's everywhere. It's rampant.
Yeah.
It's our fault for not, getting ahead of that curve earlier with the lawyers. But no, when you come into our factory, you can take pictures of everything except the relicing process.
Yeah.
Everything's fair game. You can look at all of our machinery. We even have people from other companies come in to look at our process to see how we do it, and yeah, we might be giving away $1 million ideas because we've got quite a few of them how we do our process, just from gluing necks, clamping jigs.
Yeah.
That alone saves us over $1 million a year of the jigs that we've designed in the factory. But we happily invite anybody to come in and check out what we've done. And
Wasn't relicing more of a hand process, so there's less
Absolutely.
technology to steal and copy? Or?
yeah, and then that's why it's an art for us. It's an art because if you got to do it a certain way, otherwise it looks like a fake. And it's pretty easy to tell even our stuff from competitors. And then again, you look at original vintage stuff, and every once in a while, you can't tell the difference between some of the Masterbuilt stuff and like an original vintage. And I know I've been duped before. Like, is that an original? And a lot of times, the only time we can tell is the case.
Yeah.
Because the case is different.
Yeah.
So the case comes in, it's like, it's an original. Open it up.
Thing that you can do with relic cases too.
Well, so the hardware's different. And then, there's like the chicken foot thing and stuff. And so we told the guy at G&G, hey, why don't you do the case? But yeah, that's how we know when an original's coming into the factory. Somebody walks in and is like, I know that case. I've seen that
Yeah.
style before. Open it up.
And it's funny how quickly you'll see, whoever's in the shop, especially the master builders, but
work stops.
everybody stops and they come and they start looking,
And that's how we've gotten to this process. Is we've looked at hundreds and hundreds of vintage guitars to figure out how we can get it to look like that. And it's no shortage of trial and error, and doing things, trying different things to make sure that we're getting the right effect that we want.
Yeah.
But also keeping the integrity of the guitar intact. Because some of these vintage guitars, you take them apart and you realize that they're not the greatest thing. I mean, we're making stuff that's way superior to any of the vintage stuff. And
Yeah.
it's not a knock on the old factory, it's just that the quality is so much better, and the tolerances and stuff.
Yeah. Plus, we have the, in this day and age, we're able to look back on what was already done, as opposed to that was the first run when they were doing it back then. And Leo really, he wasted nothing, and he shipped everything that he could. He didn't. It was always in tip-top condition that it could be in, but it might be a little heavy, or like the factory refins, people didn't know about those till years later. It started out as a 3-tone, for some reason it didn't pass the test, so they shot it with black. So, but yeah, the consistency these days is pretty much spot on between everything that's been learned and everything that's been improved on processes. Most all the guitars that are coming out of the Fender factory are they're the best they can possibly be.
It's a pride thing, with everybody in the custom shop.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be responsible for shipping that one ugly guitar.
Yeah.
So everyone takes great pride in doing a good job.
I had an opportunity to be at the factory, and we're talking about custom shops, but the amount of work they're putting into everything that comes out of California is just outrageous. It's top notch, no matter what you're buying from the Fender line. But I had a question. They were gonna. My question is this: so there's a Tele body, and I have a Tele body over here. Do you go over and say, well, I'm gonna relic this one. This looks great, or is that just two separate factories under one roof?
So relicing process only happens in the custom shop,
Okay.
first and foremost. So the production line isn't doing it. The only
Well, do you go grab let's go relic this, so I'm gonna go grab like 10 Tele bodies that are finished and then bring them over, or that just starts?
no, it's
Okay.
everything's cooked to order.
Yeah.
Okay.
Two separate factories
So-
under one roof,
That's
just like
right.
you mentioned.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the paint process is different. So it's basically different from the start. And then being that it's a custom shop, everything. One of the major differences of the custom shop versus the production line is when I get the order, the spec sheet, I'm gonna go pick the neck material and the body material, and those two are married at the beginning. Whereas the production line has a whole box of necks and a whole bunch of bodies, and they're just putting them together at the end. But at the very beginning, I choose the material, and they're together. It's an arranged marriage. Old school. So then that goes all the way through the paint process. I'm gonna paint a relic guitar different than a NOS guitar, obviously. Some of that's the other issue is some of the vintage guitars have quite a bit of lacquer on them. It's thick, so when it chips off, you can see some ledges, and that's how it was. But because we've got our customer base so groomed to a super thin lacquer finish, we tend to make a lot of our relics in a super thin finish just because that's what's desired in the industry for the customers. And it is genuine lacquer, it's just thin to replicate the wear. And sometimes the thicker finish results in a more authentic looking relic, but the customer doesn't want the thick finish. So it's like, what do you do?
Yeah.
If you ever want to see what it really looks like, check out JN_color on Instagram. His Instagram page it's fascinating.
He's our custom shop color painter, Jay Nelson, which is what JN is for. And if you want a list of all these guys, our Instagram, come see me later, and I'll give you the list of all the guys, and I'll show you if you want to check them out. And he's in the paint booth all day long, painting color. I don't care if it's a production line or custom shop, all the bursts, all the color is applied by hand. Everything. So every single sunburst you see is all a human being putting that on there.
Yeah.
And so Jay will actually post videos of him spraying guitars. Sometimes it's a customer's guitar, and they can tell because it's a weird color or something. Hey, that's my guitar. Oh my god.
Yeah, Taos turquoise.
It's finally coming through. But yeah, so that's why I keep bringing up Instagram. It's an insight into the shop of what's actually happening daily from all the different guys,
Yeah.
including some of the factory line workers are starting to post things now too.
Yeah.
I've spent many hours on Jay's page perusing videos and whatnot, and he's super friendly and cool. So you know, you get something in that you're not exactly sure how it was done, you can just ask him, and
He'll answer.
yeah,
Yeah.
very a great resource for what we do.
Yeah, yeah. No, he's great. If there was, I guess, if the painters had a master builder or a senior master builder, Jay would be the guy.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
he's. I remember I kept thinking, well, I'm going to go talk to Jay about this because I would write up an order and it'd be some kind of custom burst or something, and I didn't know who Jay was at the time. You know, this is years ago. It's like, who's this Jay guy? You know, and because all the builders are going to him and they're making sure that he's able to do what's necessary and he's getting it out there every time. He's just great. Yeah.
He
And he's
cleared
cool.
up the multiple shades of Lake Placid blue for me.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
in a quick paragraph.
Yeah, that drove our old marketing guy crazy.
What's the difference between faded and aged?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Faded aged.
yeah. Old Lake Placid
Super
blue,
faded.
darker Lake Placid blue. Yeah. Well, I deal with the Japanese clients quite a bit, and they're very attuned to everything that's vintage, especially if it's aged vintage. And they've had some guitars come into Japan. Like one was an older. It started out as Lake Placid blue, and somehow it had gotten to where it had a much heavier darkness come to it. It almost looked like almost like a midnight blue or Mercedes, more like a Mercedes type of blue. But so that's the color. That's one of the internal colors that we use, and it'll be called darker Lake Placid blue. Or Dennis has one of the artists that he refers to, and the painters know what they mean when they see this guy's Lake Placid blue.
Sure.
So, and it's a rich color. It's a beautiful color. So
Yeah, when you get a few of them on the wall next to one another, you can really tell the difference
Yeah.
between them. It's very cool stuff.
yeah, absolutely.
And it's weird, some of them are very similar in color, but they're completely different in formula and thought when you apply them. So,
Yeah.
Olympic white, whites, the light blues like Sonic and Daphne, those are all over the map when you get into the relic world. The guys are actually sending pictures and saying, no, I want it like this yellow, not
Yeah.
this.
Well, plus the picture comes over it'll look different on Paul's laptop than my laptop than my phone so it's like that. At that point it becomes a custom color. It's like you got to send us a physical, thing, and then they'll match it up and send it back to you for approval. So. Can I play that now? I want to. This is one of the most resonant guitars I've played too, just without any kind of. I don't know if you can hear it as well out there, but it really sings. If you were playing it at 2 a.m., your wife would probably tell you to put it down and come to bed, or something like that, because it's
Put
too
it down and
loud.
go to the couch.
That's too loud. It's not plugged in. All right. So we'll start off with the humbucker. We'll do the neck in the middle. Really quacky between the two of them. It's just a really cool. And then the bridge pickup is my favorite. Because I'm not going to play it after that. I can never keep a Bigsby in tune.
And that's a Josefina hand wound No caster bridge pickup.
Yeah, beautiful. And then speaking of Josefina actually apprenticed for Abby for between 4 and 5 years, and then she's the Masterbuilder hand winder now, and she's just fantastic. Really was able to appreciate and step into the role as a hand winder. They interviewed a lot of people for that position, didn't they?
Yeah, I
Paul?
think it was like 10 or 12 people.
Yeah, and Abby had a hand in picking, hand picking which one it was going to be, and it was wonderful that she picked Josefina because she's just great. She's been in the shop before, and she worked on the pickup line and everything too. So, but boy, she's just actually what I was going to say. I was going to introduce this little segment that I just made up on the way over here, and it's called "Answer This Question Correctly," and you'll get a set of Josefina hand-wound pickups of your choice. So, anyone you guys ready to play that? This is the only time it's ever happened before. So, okay. What was Leo Fender's middle name?
Hang on 1 second.
Yeah,
No, you stay out of this, Frank.
No thumbing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Nobody knows?
Was it
George?
Leo?
What's that?
I'm gonna take a stab.
Okay.
George.
No, but it was.
What did you say?
With
Leo.
George.
Wasn't that his middle name, was Leo? That's right.
It was.
Leo.
Yeah. Clarence Leo Fender. Dang. Actually, it was Leonidas, but I'll take Leo. So it doesn't have to be exact. So, okay, well, hit me up later and tell me which ones you want. It'll be a couple of weeks. I'll go back there and I'll sit down with Josefina and we'll have her wind them and we'll send them out to Frank or send it to you. So, yeah, very cool. Good answer.
Yeah.
That was a pretty trick question. I was thinking
It was.
nobody's gonna get
I was
this.
thinking Leo was buried in Grant's tomb, but no.
No, it was, yeah, that's another anecdote. We're gonna go back. I got a couple more questions for Paul, but I'm gonna have you just kind of walk through the design guide real quick. I'm just gonna kind of go through it fast, so if anybody's got any questions, be sure to stop me. And then Paul's got several artists that I wanted to grill him on, so we'll go back to that in a little bit. So the design guide, this is a 2017 design guide. This is the cover of it. You're in probably the best place ever to order a custom guitar. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of that, but I deal with dealers and distributors all over the world, and Frank is the best. I wouldn't, yeah. Frank Leona. It's absolutely true. He's my benchmark for everybody. The only one that to me comes close are some of the dealers and my counterparts in Japan. And as you know, a lot of folks in Japan are very, very meticulous and diligent, especially when it comes to anything American, especially vintage. So, but Frank's the greatest. But this is just a quick overview on when you want to order a custom guitar. If he's on the phone or something, you want to flip through it. There's some books here. What you want to do is start with a guitar that's closest to what you want to wind up with. So if you want a big peg Strat, obviously you'd want to start with a 69 Strat. That'll get you closest, and then you start making your different changes from there. So first, the biggest thing would be going for the neck profile. I know Paul and I have been traveling for a couple of weeks now, and I know that that's one of the biggest things for him is the profile of a neck. So it's something that you want to take under careful consideration, because you're going to be holding that baby for a long time, hopefully. Here's a cutout of the interior part of the neck, the different shapes that we have. You want to consider frets and nut width and fretboard radius, things like that, because and you can actually pick up these guys here on Frank's display board. Kind of gives you a feel for the different sizes, what's going to be good for you.
So how did you come up with a standard for 52?
It was based on a 50.
We brought in a bunch of old vintage guitars, and we just kind of took the average of the lot.
Mhm.
Everything was hand shaped, so they're all a little bit lopsided and different.
Right.
For production, we like to keep them uniform and symmetrical. But a lot of times you pick up a vintage guitar and they're asymmetrical. They're going to have more meat on one side than the other. And we've actually introduced neck shapes like that in R&D and in some of the production models as well.
The other thing I see is sometimes it's described as a 5/4 neck.
A 54 neck.
No, not a 54, a 5/4 neck, which I thought was like 1 1/4 slab. The
Oh, I know.
Oh,
Yeah.
5/4.
Yeah, 5/4. Yeah.
And does that have any significance or effect or anything?
No, normally that material is ordered for a one-piece neck. So in the industry, it's by quarters, which is why when you buy a 1-inch stock, it's actually 3/4 because they basically rob a quarter of an inch from you. So in order to make a neck that is 1 inch thick, when it's finished, means you got to buy 5/4 to have enough material. So what you're seeing is 5/4, which means it's probably a one-piece neck. So you have to pay extra for the material to make a one-piece neck, but you also have the savings of the fingerboard itself.
Yeah.
So
And
they
it would
usually
be-
the two kind of balance out.
And
But
like-
when you're doing like a Clapton neck or something, we have to buy, if you want a figured neck, we have to buy a piece of 5/4, and it's a little bit more money to do a figured neck in 5/4 to get a piece thick enough. Because if anybody's done any woodworking, you know that the figure comes from the disease in the tree that's at the base of the tree, and it's not very much of the wood, and it's in a small percentage of the trees. So to actually find the figured maples is a lot more money than just a regular piece of maple.
And the 5/4 ones, are they flat sawn, or are they quarter sawn, or?
It can be anything
you want?
Anything
Yeah.
you want. Yeah. And we have them all. And some guys will, pick and choose their grain orientation for, if they think that quarter sawn's better than flat sawn.
Is there a custom shop standard for quarter sawn? Like I've seen some that are, looking at the end grain perfectly lined, some slightly off. but
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
to that
No,
extent.
because anything that's start to get clocked, we're gonna call it riff sawn. So we
Right.
have the 3 versions.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, just like anything else, on a piece of flat sawn, you'll get a little bit of rift in there too. It does happen, but when our customers are looking for quarter sawn, we're typically going to find the nicest stuff that we can get.
Yeah, and I'll get like a request for really, really tight quarter sawn because there's quarter sawn that has a little bit more in between each of the lines. So, and then other guys want a little bit like a looser type of a quarter sawn. So it's a pretty deep level we go to, especially at the Masterbuilt level on what you can order, what's there.
Any differences? The tone?
Well, every piece of wood is different. So,
Yeah.
but from sawn orientation, what I tell everybody is stability. I've never seen any hard proof that quarter sawn is actually stronger than flat. It's just more stable. And when you got a big lever sticking out into space with 150 pounds of tension on it, stability is your friend, especially in a climate like this where you got moisture and then dry and then moisture and then dry. You go outside, it's cold and wet. Go inside, it's warm and dry. And that's about the hardest thing you can do to a guitar is to put it through those changes like that.
Yeah.
And acoustics are more sensitive because you're actually messing with your action when you do that to a guitar. Those acoustic guys know what I'm talking about when the box is swelling and shrinking. It'll actually screw your whole setup. But with the Fenders, it just usually messes with the neck and needs a truss rod adjustment. But it's a relatively easy fix compared to an acoustic. So, I mean, that's kind of why they live forever. And in its inception, the neck was kind of designed to be thrown away, which is kind of funny when you think about it.
Yeah.
And now it's like, why would you, no, don't do that. Why, don't throw that neck away. But that was kind of like Leo's thing was, it's a disposable neck.
Yeah, it's modular. It's a modular guitar. So.
I don't want anybody to just chuck on their necks. So, yeah, we take great pride in doing, not only do we do prime choice selection on our wood, what we get from our vendors, and they know, because we'll beat them up if they're starting to send us subpar stuff. We'll send it back. So, we're not touching this. And so they know the quality we're looking for. Question?
Yeah, speaking of humidity and whatnot, you look online and you'll say, 30, 20, 100, 120, whatever, it don't matter. And the other will say, no, 44, no more, no less. So what's the real deal? What's gonna break a guitar with humidity and whatnot?
About the worst thing you're gonna get with a Fender is on the super highly figured necks, it will twist. but we have a lifetime warranty, so if anything like that happens, you send it back, and we either replace the neck, fix it, or replace it for you. No charge. The second worst thing that's gonna happen in the great deal of movement is what we call fret sprout. And it happens more so on the rosewood boards, where the board shrinks so much, the metal obviously is impervious to the weather, and it's sticking out further than it was originally when the board was at full width dimension. So as the board shrinks, the metal is sticking out, it's kind of sharp on the edge. At that point, that would be a warranty repair, we would take care of that. And or Frank has some of the best technicians on the planet working right here in this store, and they can fix it for you. And either way, it's covered under warranty. So anytime, if you have a second-hand Fender and you don't qualify for the warranty, obviously Frank's guys can take care of it for you right here, and they can probably turn it around pretty quickly, I assume. Yeah. That's about the worst thing that's ever going to happen, is the neck's going to move a little bit. Occasionally, a truss rod won't be able to handle it anymore, and it'll break. But again, we would replace the neck for you, no charge. But
any range you'd want to keep them in? Does it matter?
I would say wherever it's gonna be most of the time, just keep it there.
Okay.
Set it up there. So if it's living in your house most of the time, then and you got the heater on all the time and it's dry, then set your guitar up in your house and leave it there. And then when you, obviously, if you're gonna go out and do a outdoor event in the rain, then you know you're probably gonna have a little bit of movement. It also depends on your neck shape, how thick or thin the neck is. If you got a rosewood board, if it's a one-piece maple, all that stuff's going to play a role in how much it's going to move. So, you know, obviously if you have a super paper thin 60s neck with a flat sawn rosewood board, you're going to be making more adjustments than the guy that has the 1-inch Tele neck, and he's going to be laughing at you, going, "Should have got the Tele."
And if you have a headstock adjusting, no, I can just fix it right now. Look, it's fixed.
Which is why, you know, why they went to the American Standard rod with the adjustment at the nut, is to make it easier instead of trying to climb underneath the pickguard and damage your pickguard.
I love that. A hex key in the nut.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Frank talked me into it.
Yeah.
Great idea.
So,
Yeah.
and which is why the American Standard was what it was. You know, that was the cure all for all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the other thing is, you know, don't be afraid to get to know your guitar and learn a bit about it. You know, we started including at one point we were shipping these cruise tool kits in all the guitar cases. And we went so far as to put the specs on here because we were kind of encouraging you guys to get into your guitar and know what makes it tick, and not be afraid to adjust that truss rod and familiarize yourself with, you know, with your instrument, because just like driving a car, I mean, you don't need to be a mechanic, but you need to know the basics of, you know, what's making it go and stop. It makes you a better driver if you know a little bit of the stuff that's going on. So we started including these cruise tool kits with the specs on the ruler, so that you know when it's going out of whack. And you can usually feel it. You know when your guitar is not right, and this would help you get it back on the road. So for guys like you that are in this kind of dramatic climate, this could be your friend right here.
Yeah.
And the worst place I've ever seen it is in Asia.
Yeah.
We ship brand new guitars over there, and the frets are already starting to tarnish, and they've only been on the wall for a month. And it's like, man, you know, we didn't ship it like that, but they're getting it like that. It's an unfair representation, and it's all the humidity
Yeah.
that's, you know, kind of making us look bad, so to speak. So.
Now, this was designed by all you guys, wasn't it? All the
Yeah,
Masterbuilders
also all the
had-
builders sat down. We sat down, and I think this took us about 6 months to put together. And I don't want to open this up because I don't know, we might give it away or something.
Right.
Somebody might be taking this home, so I don't want to open it up. But we might.
Whoever the winner is, he can open it up and show
Yeah.
everybody.
And included in here is one of the things that happens a lot is this guy comes loose, right,
Yeah.
when you're getting ready to play at the bar, you know, and everyone's getting ready, and you're like,
With
oh,
this guy here,
crap,
yeah.
it's getting
Same
loose.
thing.
It's gonna wiggle, it's gonna come off, I know it, it's gonna cause me grief. So we put a hex nut wrench in there as an attachment. It's a quick release attachment that goes on the end of the screwdriver, which is one of those flip around kind. It has the smaller bits and the bigger style for the bigger screws and the smaller screws that are living on the guitar, both Phillips and slotted. The quick release has the hex nut, the 1/2 inch for doing all the jack nuts, and that works on everything, the P bass, the jazz bass, the Tele Strat.
Have you folks seen the Cruise Toolkit? Have
It's a
you?
great kit.
Yeah.
It is a great kit.
I was just gonna rip it open and show you, but if you guys have already seen it, then we'll wait to see who wins it.
And you know, it has the feeler gauges in there, so you can check your truss rod to see where you're at and if it's moving. And that's why I say don't be afraid to get involved. If you have an idea of where it is, where you like it, then you can always get it back there if you need to in a pinch. So it helps to know your way around that a little bit.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I took my guitar apart and put it back together. I don't know how many times I have a Fender Music Master. It's actually hanging in the wall of my office. And each time I put it back together, I'd like be missing a pick guard screw. It went into the rug. But it's still, I just loved it. It was just like, what's going on under there? Oh, the same thing it was last month. I put it back, So, to go back to the design guide, you've gone through the neck already. So what you'll want to check out next is your body wood. Fender historically is known for ash bodies and alder bodies, and we'll do pretty much anything in the custom shop, like mahogany. Lately, we've been doing a lot of roasted on the ash and the alder, and what that does is depletes a lot of the moisture out of the spread itself, kind of lightens it up and brightens up the tone. So we've been speccing a lot of the newer collection guitars out with a lot of the roasted aspect of ash and alder. Darkens it. It looks really cool if you're going to go for if you want like a trans color, like a 3-tone, 2-tone, or like a natural or something like that. And the wood is basically kiln dried, so it's kind of cooked, and you throw some clear over that, and it just looks beautiful.
There's a lot of mythology about a one-piece body being superior to, let's say, a center seam body. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't like one-piece bodies.
Really?
Reason being is you can run into some issues of cupping, and that'll actually cause some grief in your life. It can actually crush the bobbins, the pickup bobbins. It'll squeeze the neck in there. You can pop the finish off. It does all kinds of bad things. And the whole idea behind an end match, which is in the wood industry, when you're doing woodworking, there's book match and then there's end match, where you actually take the same piece of wood, cut it, and then spin it around. You get a couple things going on there. You cut that grain variation in half. You can actually get this thing to move, and it's from the same piece of wood. So it's expanding and contracting at the same rate versus if you were to put two separate, same species but from different trees together. They're going to want to move at different rates, and that can cause you grief as well. The biggest culprit is the ash, because it is full of water when it's a tree, and all those empty straws have, when atmosphere gets in there, it's going to take over, and depending on where it's at, it's going to move up and down. So usually when you see an ash body, even though we let the lacquer cure, all it's going to do before we buff it and ship it out, you will still see grain coming through, because the ash just is always moving. We've even seen vintage guitars where the shape of the tele horn is moved from its original position just because that ash is moving. It'll either, depending on the grain, it'll either go in or out. So when they scanned old vintage guitars, we're like, how come it's not the same as the steel template? They were all cut on the steel template on the pin router.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that they were the same shape when they were cut, but they move. So there was an argument like, no, this is how they are. It's like, no, that's not how it was made. That's how it is.
That's how it is
That's
now.
how it exists. Yeah, but like when I was born, I was a lot thinner. And I exist a little bit bigger now.
So are you advocating some better for book matched, or better for, is they call it flitched match?
End match.
End match or flitch? Have you ever heard?
Yeah, it's end match is the best in my opinion. Book matching, you only need to book match when you want to see the grain. So on our tops, obviously we're going to do a book match. We'll buy blocks, cut them open. Some guys will ask for a book matched body, but you're going to pay a lot more to find the material to do that, to do a book match body. And I think maybe we'll do one a decade. something like that. But you know, if you're going to go for a sunburst or something, it can be kind of cool. But why would you want to do that on a piece? Why do you want to spend that kind of money on a piece of ash for a book bench? I don't know that you're going to gain anything, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Obviously, an end match center seam is basically the way to go. It's going to cure all your cupping problems and keep the distortion down to a very minimum. Plus, everything that we get, you know, all lumber is coming in a cabinet grade. In that industry, it's 10%. We don't touch it until it's at 7%, right around 7%. So we end up sitting on wood. We're actually a big wood storage facility because we're buying up wood and then just sitting on it because we want it to naturally acclimate. There's ways to speed up the process, which we can do if we need the material. It's just better to have it naturally acclimated to 7%. Then you're going to run into less issues when it comes to climates like this of it moving and getting, you know, fret sprout, body distortion, cupping, all those things. We want to eliminate that, so we have to take great care in the material. That's one of the other things that we're taking great pride in what we're doing, is making sure that not only is our quality of material great, but its ability to become a guitar there's another stage of life before, so we have to go through that process.
How does the roasting it affect the moisture content? You say 7%. Does it go down to 2% or something?
I don't know what percentage. I don't know what the actual percentage is when it comes out. There's basically two different temperatures that we do it at, and you'll see the color variation. We have what we call the light roast and then the dark roast. So this neck on this Tele right behind Brian is a dark roast neck.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So the moisture content's probably much different in that neck versus the other Tele that was shown.
The strap.
Strap.
light
Oh, the
one.
strap.
Yeah.
That's a light roast. And it actually becomes brittle. The material becomes brittle because we're extracting so much moisture out of it, and it's doing a molecular change to the fibers, so it's basically all compressed.
And it's a quick molecular change.
Yeah. Instead of
It's roasted out of it.
you know, laying around for 100 years or whatever.
Yeah, it's my
Right.
quick shot. Slow body roast.
Yeah.
But sometimes, yeah, you just don't have 100 years, you know. Yeah, it's become very popular.
It's kind of pretty too.
Yeah.
I think my favorite, because I've done both, is the light in terms of the gains, the tone gain that you get from the light roast and the color. My opinion is I used to really like the dark roast because it looks really, really pretty, you know. But I think you're actually losing tone by going too dark on some of the stuff. So the light roast has turned to be my favorite of the
Yeah.
two. It's like anything else, you got to taste it for yourself before you can make a decision.
Yeah.
So I like the sound of an ebony board on a P bass. Not everybody does.
Yeah, but it sounds good to you. It talks to you the right way and everything. Yeah.
I've got an ebony board on a Telecaster. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
What
you
kind of
got-
body?
Telecaster.
Was it alder or
Ash.
ash? Wow.
Twice.
Yeah. Very nice.
And if I knew you guys did spruce, it would have been a spruce body.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. At one point, we had we had a big batch of high-end European spruce. It was for like arch tops. We had these billets of it. Just big chunks.
I've got a spruce Stratocaster from you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Probably sounds really good.
You know, they all sound good.
Yeah. They all feel good. Yeah. So going back to the design guide real quick, we have a lot of the same tooling that Leo originally had. So we're making a lot of the same bridges, making the same Tele, the same machine that made the Tele bridges back in the day. We have that, and we're making the Tele bridges that way. So he's great because you can hear second shift. You can feel it actually. You'll be sitting in your office, and when you'll feel in your cubicle, you'll just feel the whole slab just go boom, boom, while they're working them over there. I always think, well, there's Leo's machines doing some stuff on second shift, you know. Either that or it's Godzilla and he's just standing in place. Just going, he's not getting closer yet. So there's the hardware options are just like anything on any of the Fenders, especially the Strat, there's so many things you can do to it, obviously. I was just looking at this one here and just looking at it, it's like, look, it's got an anodized guard on it, it's got the light colored pickup knobs and covers, it's got the roasted body and the roasted neck. It's just, and there's so many other things from that you can do, you know. That's just one example of the many things that you can make a Stratocaster into, you know, based on your own druthers. So, well, color options, we have like 90 stock colors, and then from there it goes into the faded and the stuff that Paul was discussing earlier. There's so many different tones and shades that you can get, but yeah, so there's many colors, you know, you can get.
I just had a request for a Tahitian coral.
Yeah.
But he wanted the finish to be NOS, but he wanted the color to look like it was really faded. So
Yeah.
it was this. It ended up looking like a clay pot, like something in the yard, kind of orangey, like it had been aged for 30, 40 years. But he absolutely wanted the NOS finish. So we do that too. So we can take one of these vintage looking beat up guitars, take that hue and then make that a NOS. Just another example of something that you can do.
Yeah, up next would be the aging style. Of course, you see a pretty beat up Tele there. That was a huge model. I think it was a 53 we did like 4 years ago, I think, Brian. And or anywhere from NOS to something as beat up as that. Then there's the lovely and talented Josefina compost there. Hand winding what looks like a Strat pickup. You have all kinds of pickup options too to go within those, go within that build, whatever it is that you want to have built. So, and you see Josefina's hand wound signature on the bottom of those guys.
Okay, so the blue dot means neck, right?
Yes, and the red dot means bridge, because I always think blue is not bridge, even though the B is in blue. Yeah. Right.
And so I've seen some that are blue, but there's no red dot. The bridge is, I mean.
Probably, well, almost all the vintage sets weren't progressive like we do them in the shop. So a lot of times we'll do a hotter bridge, and then a medium middle, and then a lighter neck, just so the guitar balances out. Everything vintage was one spec, all three pickups the same. So if there's no color on it, it just means that they were all the same. And the neck is usually wound stock to vintage spec. So if it's a blue dot, it's probably just a stock neck. And if there's no other dots, it usually means it's just a stock set. Meaning that's how it would have come from the factory in that year. When we start staggering the sets in turns for impedance, then that's when we start putting the red dot, and sometimes you'll see green too. For middle.
And that's reverse wound too as well? Or?
Yep.
Yeah, it would do a lot of that. So basically that's your design guide in a nutshell. You can look through it. There's more actually in between the pages where it just took some highlights. There's some great pictures in there. We have a custom shop photographer on staff named Mark Carrolley, and he's just again, if there was a level for photography, he would be a Masterbuilt type of photographer. He can take a picture of this and just make it look gorgeous, whereas I would do it and it would just look like an autopsy flat, two-dimensional thing, or one-dimensional. So a lot of cool stuff inside that. So going through some of the stuff we've done in the past, like Paul's Harrison Tele, we've done the Hendrix Monterey, the SRV #1, the Jeff Beck Esquire, and the Clapton Blackie. All these have proven to be very collectible and
there's a Monterey in that case.
Yeah.
There's a Monterey up in the front here.
Yeah, Frank's got an original in there. You've probably all seen. Yeah, so they all go up in value because that's all we made and that's it. And then the traders take over and the gray market takes over and they just start rising in value. I remember when you made this, it was.
He's like, I want a free guitar too. He had back surgery, so he has an Irish Falcon. It's a big Gretsch model. It's kind of heavy, and his particular guitars that he has for the road were a little bit too heavy to sling around his neck after the surgery. So he asked for a super lightweight Telecaster version of his guitar. That's all he asked for. So I just kind of took the appointments that came from his guitar. It's a completely chambered out body, and I think the guitar weighs like 6 pounds, 6.5 pounds.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
And it has all of his same pickups, the Gretsch styling with the gold sparkle binding, and it's that Cadillac green Gretsch color. It's kind of a cool guitar.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, it's kind of clean looking. He took the pick guard off, as you can see in the live photo. Pick guard, it says the goal is soul. And I put it on there because that's how his production model is, so he got it. He's like, no, I don't like it, so the tech took it off.
Yeah.
And it actually looks really kind of good without it.
Yeah, looks good with both, I think. Well, that's what's cool about Fenders to me. It's like whenever I put one on, I instantly look cooler. At least I thought I did, you know.
I had a customer that wanted, he wanted the logo backwards on the peg so he could stand in the mirror and the logo would be right. That's my guitar.
All right.
That's a real story.
Yeah. How about the cardboard Strat? Do you wanna show the video and then discuss that? Yeah, we've seen it. I got the video, and it's pretty. I mean, it's one of the most watched videos, and I was lucky enough that I was out on the floor. Paul brought it by when he was done with it. He asked me to play it, so I'm even in this for like 2 seconds, but I played it for about 3 minutes at least, and it was just fantastic to play. It's such a great guitar.
What gauge strings are on that?
Those are 10s.
Wow. Did he end up, is the guy who ended up taking that, or what happened to that piece?
I still have it.
You still, oh, okay.
Yeah, I told him I can't sell it because I can't warranty cardboard. I just can't.
Oh,
I don't want to deal with it. So I still have the guitar.
I mean, is it raw cardboard? Did you have to soak it in something to get a little?
So it's cardboard, and what Mike was doing in Mike Martinez and Ernest Packaging is he made these little decks and put the cardboard with the flutes oriented up so that it would act as wood grain, and then poured epoxy on it. So that it was basically drizzled in epoxy so it would absorb it, but it's not filled with epoxy. Right. So it was just in a bath. That's all it is.
Compared to some of your normal pieces, how long did it take you to put that together specifically?
2 days. Yeah, because there was no.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's no paint. It was basically like woodworking.
Okay.
But it was 2 long days.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, we did everything by hand too. There was no air tools or anything because it's just easier and just better to do it that way.
Was there anything tricky about putting the Fender logo on the headstock, Paul?
Yeah, I think I ended up trying to glue it on with some lacquer just to get it to stick because with the flutes basically oriented the other way so you could see. I did it on purpose so you could see through the guitar. It was hard to get any surface area for anything to stick to it, so that was challenging.
With that in mind, how did you get the frets to stay in place?
There was enough structure there in the paper that it was actually holding the frets in. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. It's weird because it's like a piece of rubber with the tension on there, so you can actually pull it out of tune
Really?
when you fret it if you play chords and stuff. It's
So
weird.
it's like an SG.
It was a real thin neck kind of thing, yeah.
How much did it weigh?
I don't remember what that guitar weighed. It weighed.
It was really light.
Like 3 pounds or
No, it was more like 5.
Yeah.
Just the parts alone on the Strat are, I think, 3 pounds between the bridge block, the tuners, the pickups, the pick guard. That's why people say, "What's the lightest Strat you can build?" Well, I can't really get it under 7 pounds because it's
got to be something.
Half of it is hardware.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's
it's-
non-negotiable stuff.
Yeah, some of that Colonia or Empress wood is,
Yeah.
you can get 2 pounds. You get a Strat body or a
Yeah.
Tele body.
You get really, the neck starts getting heavy on those things and dips.
Yeah.
I did one that way, unfortunately. I did a parts caster, and I was like, oh, this is the lightest piece of wood I could
Yeah, let
possibly
go.
find. And it just comes crashing to the
Like an
ground.
SG. All the band designs are looking at
Bologna is used, I mean, Yamaha uses it, a lot of the Asian builders use it.
Yeah.
It's an available hardwood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. If you want to call it a hardwood, yeah.
Yeah, it's a fast-growing softwood hardwood.
Exactly. Yeah. It's getting to the point where there's, everybody has to start looking at alternatives. So that's one of them. I know at Fender they were doing it, but weren't they like kind of drilling in and gluing in like harder wood pieces for where the screws were? Or?
Yeah, they were in R&D. They were actually putting maple
Yeah.
in to
Yeah.
capture some of the stuff because
They won't hold screws.
yeah,
Right.
it'll just come tearing out. Especially strap buttons. Those are. I mean, sometimes strap buttons come out of ash and alder.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of the guys that have these vintage guitars and still play them. Sometimes you'll find like these giant screws that they put in the strap button because all the stock screws have wiggled out,
Yeah.
come out.
The guy that worked in one of the artist guys, he was actually a guitar builder too. He's now in R&D, but he would always, for a lot of his guys that jumped around a lot, he would just take a neck bolt screw.
Yep.
And he would just, kind of bore out the strap button and put that in. So you talk about a screw, like Paul said, like this long. That's not coming out. So.
Wasn't it the EDH Frankenstein that had the big like eyelet screw?
Yeah.
When you get a custom guitar built,
Yeah.
custom shop, which builder builds it? Can you choose?
There's several things that'll happen. It'll be like where sales or marketing chooses, or if they choose a builder. A lot of the guys, especially through the Instagram accounts, will get people that just request a certain builder. So it's any number of things.
Well, let's say Paul is building 50 Keith Richards Teles, and you want him to build your custom Tele. Do you have to wait until he's done with all 50, or does it move in between the run?
We normally do first in, first out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but we started this new thing where we've allocated a priority to, let's say you walk into this store and you give Frank cash, say I want this guitar, that gets a priority 1 in my computer system. That automatically, boom, gets sent to the end of the priority 1 line. And priority 1s is what I'm gonna build first.
Okay, and I'll do another
Okay,
one.
but that's you. But if it just goes from Frank to custom shop, do they portion it out to other builders if they
So-
have less of a workload?
It can't. Sometimes it can be a to be determined. It goes into what we call a TBD pile, and it'll get distributed. I think they distribute those monthly. They take the TBD pile that comes in, and they look at they'll look at, like, if I'm working on a big project or something, then obviously they won't put it in my roster. They'll put it in somebody else's who's maybe down a little bit. It kind of depends. And sometimes there's 2 or 3 of us that are kind of low, so it'll end up just kind of being a gamble of who gets the order. One of the newest things we have started doing, like I said, is the priority. Once a guitar is going, it's already got its customers basically payment. That is now priority 1 versus a store that just says, yeah, I need something to hang on the wall.
Which Frank does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything.
He orders custom shop stock.
Yeah.
Right. And now that's a priority 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And then we work with Frank to, in fact, Frank was one of the first stores that we started doing this with, is where we actually work with him to say, where's the priority in this stuff.
Where's your customer orders, and we'll get to those first, and then we can get to the store.
And it's worked so well now that we're doing it with all the stores, where we're kind of mandating, like, we need your priority 1s for guys that are waiting, because we don't want to make them wait 2-3 years on behind store stock stuff.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense, and it's not really that fair. Even though the order was placed in line in that order, we want to get to those priority 1s first. So that is basically something we started doing about a year ago, and it's already starting to come to fruition now because we've worked through all the older orders, and now we're getting to all that priority 1 stuff. So like right now, my list, it'll say what priority number it is, and obviously 4 is the lowest. And so I will schedule and batch my priority 1s together as best I can. And I'm also looking at when the order was placed and I know that, you know, there's kind of a sweet spot of patience, and after about 12 months, that's about when it runs out, it seems.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it is a problem, but it's also a good problem to have, you know, to be in demand.
Well, you wanna be busy all the time.
Yeah.
As
And
a company.
as well, even personally as a builder, if I only have 6 months of work, I'm scared, you know. It's like, well, I only have 6 months of work, and I look at some of the other guys, and they got a couple of years worth of work.
That's the thing though too, is with our roster, it's always liquid and it's always changing, and there's always opportunity, you know, so there's been times in the past where one of the builders, if he didn't have as much as the other, and something happened to pop up, you know, because things always pop up with the custom shop. There's always something that comes in and it
There's
needed
always
to be
a
done yesterday.
A TBD pile and a super
Yeah.
hot pile, and so yeah, so there's always
There'll be, and then we, you know, even artist things, you know, where, you know, artists don't understand, you know, not all of them understand that sometimes it takes a while to get something, and our artist guy wants to pounce on it and make it maybe in time for the NAMM show or something like that. So then that's great, because the builder that has only 6 or 8 months backlog, suddenly you've got this project now, and you know it's going to take, you know, now you've got plenty of work for the foreseeable future type of thing. So there's a bit of comfort knowing that, you know, you've got you know, X amount of months of work ahead of you, because then you don't have to worry about anything. But you know, it's nice to be able to move quick too. So
I think even the team built stuff is going into priority allocations.
yeah, it is.
Team build, well, you're a custom shop, you're a single builder,
I'm master built.
master
Yeah.
build. Okay. But team build is what exactly?
It's a small team of people that are building the stock catalog product, and the custom orders that come into the shop that are just team built custom shop orders.
Okay,
So
so you
you-
could get custom touches on a team build.
It's limited, but yes.
Yeah, there's the custom collection that comes out. You can get certain changes to that, you know, and that can be. And then they changed it to custom built. I kind of wish they didn't, but they had a good reason to do that. But custom built, team built, that's the same thing. And then there's master built. So. And then
The difference being is custom shops, so you know, it's a small group of people building the guitars.
Right.
You know, not much different than how many bodies I see in this room is what's in the final assembly custom shop department.
Yeah.
And so it's you know, everyone's kind of cross trained, so they all know how to do the job. So if you know someone's out, someone can fill in, whatever. But it's a small group of people building the guitars, and they've all been there for, you know, like 20 years is the average employee tenure. And
a lot of them have worked in other parts of the factory, and we get to go and pull them when they get to a certain level and we need somebody. It's like, well, we need him, you know, and it's worked out to where they come over if they want to come over, basically, you know. So, but we get the best of the best from the factory. Usually, that's how it works. So,
and that is dictated by the logo that's on the back of the guitar. So all the master builders have their signature decal.
yeah.
And then the custom shop, the custom built, which I've been calling team built because that's what I've always known it.
I know, I do
It's now
too.
custom built.
I know. Sorry.
Has just the regular Fender Custom Shop
V logo.
V logo.
on the back.
Yeah.
Without a name.
Without it.
Right.
Without a name, yeah, and that's the delineation between the two. That's how you can tell. That and the price tag usually tells you right away which one's which.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the difference is I'm building the guitar versus a team of people. So
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
that's why it's more expensive. 'Cause
And
it
he
takes-
can make the double neck. You know, the team built will not. There's.
And we're there to facilitate the stuff that the team built just can't, because not because they're not capable, just it would just slow the machine down. They can't do a double neck because, you know, they're not really set up to do that with their tooling. It'll
Yeah.
have to be kind of hand done, and it's just easier for one of us to do it.
Yeah.
Great example would be that piece that I was talking with you about earlier, where you sent out the parts to be satinized in
Yeah.
black.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, you're not going to get the team built version to get that kind of attention to detail. That's
Right.
absolutely a Masterbuilt thing, where you know they take a normal Fender SKU and ship it off and have it plated That's beyond cool, that kind of attention to detail. I mean,
And then I've got a couple things I'm working on for NAMM, and it's like throwing baloney on the wall. You never know what's going to stick. But the problem for me with NAMM is a lot of times it doesn't see the light of day until somebody like Frank gets it in their store and people play it. Because no one plugs anything in at NAMM and plays it, because we kind of section it off and say don't touch anything.
Yeah.
We just don't want those guitars getting abused before they go to its rightful.
Thousands of people coming through NAMM
Yeah.
booths.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you know, we obviously want to display them and show the new product, but a lot of times it doesn't get traction until later on. And I've had emails from Frank like, wow, this guitar's really cool. And it's like, I wish you would have been able to play it at NAMM and
Yeah.
hear it. But I have a new humbucker pickup coming out, but I wanted to, I like the PAF, but no one's making it right. You know, it needs to be hand wound to sound cool. So I'm setting up to have bobbins so that Josefina can wind them, and I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna have her wind one different than the other, so it'll have the kind of the nuances of an old one, but wrap it in a Fender package, so it looks like a Fender product. But I have a feeling it'll capture some ears when people hear it. It's gonna take a while.
Wait. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
And it's becoming more acceptable to put a humbucker in a Strat. Now,
It's not.
Certain people.
I said becoming.
Yeah.
There's one of the things about the Strat, the Tele not so much. You can get away with changing things on a Tele, and people don't get as mad as when you change a Strat. You change a Strat, people start getting pissed, and it's like it's sacred. You can't mess with it. Not with that name on the headstock. You know, if it says something else on the headstock, then it's like, yeah, okay,
Do
that's
whatever
fine.
you want.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want. But it is now becoming somewhat acceptable to put a humbucker in the bridge in a Strat and having people be okay with it. And so I thought, well, this would be a good time to come up with a new humbucker that actually sounds really good. It doesn't sound like the 80s metal humbuckers that everyone has been
Yeah.
producing for years and years and years, which it has its place, but there's plenty of them out there. The market is saturated with that stuff, so I want something a little bit different and kind of quirky, so I'm going to try this thing and put it up in NAMM and see what happens. But what I usually do is shop it around to these guys in the shop, because I'm more of a bass player. So, you know, I don't really go through all the gears on a guitar and really put it through its paces, so I give it to the drivers that really know what they're doing and have them check it out, and they'll say, you're tweak it this way or that. And, so I'm sure it'll be in Mikey's hands around Thanksgiving.
It's another perk of the job. Life does
And
not
then he'll
suck.
go, hey, make me one, and then it ends up in his guitar, you know? So, and then I have because you can't change a Strat, I'm coming up with this new body design, which this might go over like a fart in church, I don't know. But it's a new body design that's kind of reminiscent of a few different Fender models that's based on the Strat platform. In other words, what makes a Strat sound like a Strat is the bridge and the bridge block and those pickups. That's what a Strat is. You make it out of cardboard, yeah, the wood is carrying some of the tone. It's definitely part of the tone pie. It's a good portion of it. However, you can't change the pickups in a Strat because people get mad. Like this guy here, he gets really mad. He's looking at me like, what are you doing? You can't change that. You can't put and we've done it before, you know, sometimes Dale will sneak a Tele neck pickup into a Strat. And, you know, but like if you look at that Gene Baker thing, it's like, whoa. You know, some people are shocked and terrified.
That sparkle brown cruise Strat's got a no-caster pickup in the bridge.
That's pretty.
Yeah, that color is very cool.
That is nice.
Beautiful guitar. But yeah, see what he's saying?
Flat pole
Yeah.
pieces,
Yeah.
no
It's got a
caster.
different route on it and everything. I actually have a Strat and Dennis made. Boy, I sound like a spoiled kid. I got all these builders doing stuff for me. But those are the only two, I swear. But
Until the next story.
yeah, exactly. But Dennis had a request from one of our counterparts in Germany to actually replicate Lowell George's Strat. You know, he's real famous for that real hot sound with a slide playing and having it in the bridge position. He actually had a Tele bridge pickup in there. we couldn't do that, of course, because we had no agreement, but there was no law against putting a Tele Pickup in the bridge position on a Strat. Within the past 7 years, I went from a Strat player to a Tele player, so that sounded great to me. So Dennis did that, and it's great. It's really it's pretty nice to knock it down to that bridge position and have that kind of power.
How do you
So.
feel about reversing the angle on that pickup?
I'm not as
I'm
much
not
of a fan.
There's
Yeah.
one right over here somewhere.
Yeah.
So,
It's cool. There's some, there's something for everybody. That's one of the great things about the shop. You try things out, and if people like it, that's great.
I don't want to buy this.
But you
But,
guys don't really like that idea.
That's just a personal druther thing, Yeah, the Stevens one there.
Yeah, I made one just like that for a guy, and he sent it back. So I hate it.
Really? That big of a difference? Okay.
Yeah, there was a reason why he did it that way, and who am I to argue with Leo when it comes to an ear with that stuff?
Yeah.
It's kind of it makes a pretty big difference, especially with that guitar because it's an Esquire, but the Tele gets a lot of use in the bridge position by most people, most players. So.
Do you believe in the pseudoscience of more tone wood, more tone? In other words, like a guitar with a larger neck may have more
Yeah,
resonance?
I do a little bit. I don't know. There's a lot of myth and voodoo and a lot of this stuff. For me, just a proper setup go a long way in tone and helping you play better. Let's start there. But yes, on a Fender, this thing's a big lever out in space. The most resonant part of the guitar is way out here. So you can actually put a little.
The fat finger thing or whatever?
Yeah, or somebody
Shape
makes
up.
this. It's like it looks like the cone that goes around the dog when he gets his
Oh yeah,
Self-clipped.
that's right. Yeah.
in a clothes hanger. Clip it on the end out there, and you got a speaker because that thing is moving like crazy.
Wow.
That's why when it's hanging on the wall and you strum it, it sounds big, because this thing's really moving out here. It's just that way out in space with all that tension on it, and it's like a tuning fork. It's just humming along out there. So yeah, I think the neck is actually making a great deal of importance in tone. That's why a Fender sounds like a Fender with maple. When you change it to mahogany, it's like that lost something. It doesn't really quite sound like a Fender anymore. Just got a little mushy on me. And so that hard maple really makes it what it is.
Yeah.
Let's stay in the land of voodoo and mythology
Okay.
for a moment.
Let's do
We're
that.
having
Yeah.
so much fun.
Yeah,
What about a large headstock versus a traditional headstock?
I can't hear a difference. I can't hear a difference between flat lamb and round lamb. I can, on occasion, hear a difference between rosewood and maple.
So you believe
especially-
in that?
Yes, and I can hear the difference in usually ash and alder.
Yeah.
But one begets the other, so usually an alder body is going to have a rosewood board, so I can usually hear the difference. But
Yes.
if you start blindfolding people and see how much of their own beliefs they can actually point out,
Right.
I would begin to wonder.
Yeah.
Well, you do have more mass with the larger headstock.
Sure.
Yes, that's true. But I can't hear a difference.
No,
And
neither
I
can I.
built a couple thousand guitars in my life, and sometimes I'll build the same guitar 5 or 6 times, and one of them just sounds way better than the other 4. I don't know why.
Where would you place the solid rosewood neck in there?
What's that?
The solid rosewood neck.
I like it with on a Strat with the ash. I think it sounds kind of cool that way.
We've really been loving the Tele fin line, the semi-hollow fin lines.
Yeah, with the rosewood neck. Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
Killer sounding guitars.
Yep. Yeah. The rosewood does have kind of like a sweet, sweet mid-range to it.
You can hear it, I think, acoustically more than once you start plugging stuff in. A lot of that's going out depending on what kind of effects you're using, how loud you're playing, things like that. One of the guys I play with, he has an Ibanez acoustic, and it's got a maple neck on it. It's like from '74 or so. And if I play that and I play my Martin, I can definitely hear a difference between the two. And I attribute that a lot to do with the fact that it's got an all maple neck on it. So.
But again, I go back to the setup thing because when I was in Asia with Mike, we had Jason too. Jason and I were doing the road shows, and Jason's a bass player as well. But his actions, like, you know, you put a whole deck of cards underneath his strings.
Yeah.
Mine's like practically touching the board, because I used to play fretless and I did all this other stuff. So I like really super low action. So does Brian. And so I can't play Jason's bass and he can't play mine. And if we were to pick up each other's guitars, we would probably both sound terrible, you know, and it's not our fault. We just can't play that setup. So setup is huge, because, you know, getting that thing to where it feels good is going to help you play better. And then playing better means you're going to sound better. So, to me, anyway.
Yeah.
That's always been my experience.
That's a good point.
So even a guitar that may not have all the stuff you want on it, if it's set up right, you might like, man, this is a really great guitar. I just wish it had a whatever, or a this or a that, you know. And how many times has that happened when you go to the store, picked up a guitar, and just like, man, I don't know why, I just really like this guitar. Sometimes that's just it. It's a good proper setup feels right.
Yep.
When Kraus was here a couple years ago, he talked about Shimgate.
Oh, Shimgate.
Oh yeah, that was still fairly new at the time. Yeah.
The first rule of Shimgate is we don't talk about it.
Well, is there a material that you prefer for a shim when it's necessary?
Business cards.
No, because I just don't.
You just fit it to. You just have a super tight fit.
If I need any pitch, I'm just gonna sand it out of the pocket.
Just to be clear, custom shop guitars do not ship with shims.
Nothing that I've seen out of the custom shop ship with a shim.
Yeah.
I've never put a shim in any of my guitars.
Yep,
Except for the one that called for it.
Well,
Fender
yeah, this is
guitar,
this.
You look at a vintage
part of the
Fender
spec.
guitar, and sometimes you'll see that little gray shim in it.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they didn't. I mean, you know, again, Leo wasted nothing,
Yeah.
and they were going to make sure it was still going to, if as long as it was functional,
Right.
and the quality was there, they would do things like that to make it ship.
We've even
so.
seen guys that took like soup cans
Yeah.
and cut them to the pocket shape and stuck them in there. We've
Yeah.
taken real vintage guitars apart and seen picks, soup cans, all kinds of stuff in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Matchbooks.
Yeah, hopes and dreams sometimes are in there.
They get out though real quick. They run down the street.
But yeah, again, it's like if you needed to do it, because you know we're talking about a different era when the tolerances weren't the same as they are now. We actually got a little bit more of a struggle because we have an inconsistency in fret height. Because we're building custom guitars, so we're doing different frets from vintage to like these super tall 6105s.
Yeah.
And that throws the setup. That's a completely different setup. So our spec is the same on the neck. It's 1 inch from the butt to the top of the radius. But when you're talking about 30 thousandths of fret wire, additional or less, that's going to change your setup a great deal. But again, if I'm setting up a guitar and I don't like the way it's set up, then I'll take it out of the neck pocket if I have to. And if the neck pocket's too low, I'll just make a new body.
Yeah.
But I check it before paint anyway, so that doesn't happen. But I wouldn't ship a guitar
Well,
that.
ideally, that's what you want, but do you feel that a shim would diminish the resonance of a guitar?
Honestly, I don't think so. No. And the reason why I say that is because some of the guitars that I like the sound the best are actually kind of junky, and the necks don't fit proper in the neck pocket, and they have shims. So I don't think that is making up anything in the tone. For me, anyway, not what I hear. You know, for me, it's a combination of the pickups and the wood and the neck, mostly the neck.
Yeah, I've even heard that. Well, the old Townsends, they would get the Claptons that from the American product line, and they would put shims in there and it'd be wooden shims because they want the wood to wood sound, which is, I mean, Pete's one of my favorite guitar players. I've always loved his style and everything, but I don't know how he's able to hear much of a difference because he's got an active guitar with piezo bridge on it, and he's running it through a couple of big old Fenders. It's like, how can you tell there's a wood shim in there, dude? But hey, if you do, that's cool. You know.
You know, that's the other thing too is, you know, we're only talking about half of the tone pie here. Actually,
Yeah.
a third, because to me the human's the other third of the tone.
Yeah.
The amp's the other half of the battle. You know, because when we were on the last roadshow, we were plugging into a lot of hot rods. Man, those things sound good for $400 or $500. You
Yeah.
kidding me?
Yeah. Yeah, they're nice.
If I was gonna have one at my house, that's probably what I would get, is a little hot rod, because it was like every single one you plug into, it doesn't matter what you throw at it, they all sounded good.
Yeah.
I guess they're the #1 most requested amps, you know, from the SIR kind of places.
Oh, really?
Places are hot rods.
Yeah. Well, I know a guy that goes. He's in a small, you know, a lower level band. He tours Europe, does the festivals during festival season, and he says when he's got backline, he gets a hot rod. Not a hot rod deluxe. The what's the next one up with the 212s? The DeVille. He has a DeVille, man, and he is just happy as a clam. He's just like right on, because he puts his pedal board in there, runs it flat, but it's got such a nice throw to it, you know. So he's, yeah. To your point, you know, that's a pretty requested amp, I think. So, but you brought up a good point too about the player being the part of the tone. You know, I've heard, what is it, one guy was telling me, he's going, oh yeah, well, Joe Walsh gets that tone because he's got these great big fingers, you know. And it's like, well, yeah, but, you know, it's like, you know, the tone is in his fingers, you know, and it's like, the tone, you know, the fingers are part of the whole thing, you know. To me, it's all in the brain, what you're hearing, what's coming back to you. It's not like I can, you know, borrow Joe Walsh's fingers to see what they sound like when I play them, you know. It's all in what you're hearing and how it's coming back to you, you know,
Yeah.
So, but you know, so it's a good point about the fingers, but it's all integral as far as what you're hearing, what you're playing, you know, what it's all a part of. You know, so,
You're right.
yeah. I remember the first time I picked up, it was that same music store I was telling you about, and it was I think it was an SG, and it was on bridge, and I had it plugged in, I think a jazz chorus, but it was it's another amp. But anyway, I remember I hit the sound, and it was the A chord in Walk Away, the Joe Walsh song. And it sounded just like it, and it was one of the coolest things I've ever experienced, because it was like, that's it! You know?
The epiphany, the source of the rainbow.
Yeah, it was, and it just like way led on to way. It was like, wow, I can
You
pull
came
off
back
a...
the next day and it wouldn't sound that way.
I don't think I ever tried it again, you know?
Magic happened.
The day I sounded like Joe Walsh.
For a moment.
Yeah. But you know, that's all part of it. You know, it's all part of the enjoyment of it. You know, so.
I know we start to get pretty deep about this stuff, and then when you start blowing it apart, it's like we build these things all day long, and you can tell, you know, you can tell when you're listening to a Tele, and you can tell when you're listening to a Strat, and you know, you can hear the difference of that bridge pickup being surrounded by a bunch of metal.
Yeah.
Versus you know, the jangly Strat and the bridge and the block and everything, and you know, of course you want to go deep. You want to know what, you know, the source of all this stuff. But I mean, we're so in the wheelhouse of anything that has been recorded. It's like right there in front of our faces. You know, we just need to find the right one.
Yep.
It's right there.
Yeah.
But, you know, we keep throwing all this different stuff because it is fun. It is so much fun to put a different neck on something.
Yeah, it is.
Like, what's this gonna be like? You know?
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes you get excited too. Like even now, after doing this for so long, you know, I remember when I built my first guitar, I could barely sit still when I was putting the strings on it, and I was shaking. It's like, this is the moment of truth right here. This is what I'm gonna find out. Either I love this thing or I want to burn it. And I get that same feeling when I'm, you know, doing a new pickup or trying a different combination of woods or something. And that's kind of the greatest part of the whole thing. Is just throwing the baloney and seeing if it sticks, you know. And he was like, yes, or no, never doing that again.
So your Tele Pickup that's got the cutout on
Yep.
the top?
Yeah, so in the neck position, one of the things about the Tele is this cover, this nickel silver cover, kind of chunks the pickup off, and it doesn't really give you the nuance of what's going on. So by opening up the cover and exposing the magnets, you still get the inductance that's happening with the cover, because it's pulling on the magnetic field and kind of narrowing the field, which is good, but it's also choking off some of the highs and stuff. So when you open it up, you can actually get all the nuance, so it starts to sound more like a Strat. But it still has, it's like in between a Strat and a Tele. I don't know how to explain it better than that.
So what do you
Maybe
mean?
Mike can, because he's got one in his guitar.
By opening it up, if I took that in on a mill and just put a slot in there.
You can, but you'll expose the metal that's unplated, and it'll start to deteriorate, especially out here. The moist air will start rotting the cover away. So we actually have covers made and then plated so that it's all sealed up. But yeah, you just basically cut and leave like a 1/16 of an inch around the
And
flat
then
surface.
replate it and you'll be good to go.
Yeah. But you got to be careful if you're going to do that. Are you a tinkerer? Is that what you
Yeah.
do? You tinker because you got a Bridgeport?
I have access to it.
Okay. When you pull this cover off, you got to be really careful because you can actually break the wire on the bottom because there's a solder job that you have to do to pull it off. So if you break that wire,
Oh, I have chip take cover off and then
Okay.
I'll take it.
okay, because
There you
you'll
go.
kill the pickup. You got to be really careful. With
Yeah.
it.
No dead pickup.
So yeah, keep that in mind when you go to pull your cover off if you're going to modify your own. But like I said, now we're starting to offer this in the custom shop. I just found out. So. But yeah, it's another really cool thing. Try it, and you're like, oh, I wonder what this is going to sound like.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think, oh, this is dumb, and then somebody will go, what's that? Do that again. I did a good one. And other times it's like, no, don't ever do that. And then sometimes we put reminders up on the wall, like, don't do that. Stay away from that. And one of those things is, again, playing with the Strat and putting different pickups on a Strat. People hate that more than anything else.
So, being a Nile Rodgers fan and saying that, how do you feel about hardtails?
Me? Oh, I like hardtails a lot,
Yeah.
but they're also not quite. It's not quite a Strat to me, just because that block is not there.
I totally agree. It blurs the lines.
Yeah, and some guys will actually claim that they can hear the springs in the rattle, which is, that there's something there. You know,
Sure.
if you push that claw all the way in and put all 5 springs on, yeah, you start.
Built-in reverb tank.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
You can either add or take away or whatever.
Sure.
That's
Because we had one of those Nile Rodgers here, and everybody who played it was like, "What's the magic with this thing? Why does it sound so good?"
Well, there's 2 things going on. It's a hardtail, so it doesn't have the block. It's not technically a real Strat to me.
Sure.
Even though a hardtail Strat is a Strat, and Ronnie Wood has probably the biggest collection of hardtails I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah, he loves the hardtails. That and Nile's guitar has the pickguard is brass,
Oh,
chrome
okay.
plated brass, and that's screwing with the tone of the pickups because of the induction of how the field is going,
Sure.
and so it's tweaking all that and changing things.
Yeah, that was a fabulous sounding guitar.
Yeah. And what's funny is that guitar, the prototype, we made 3 pickguards. And at the time, Abby was still there. So Abby made the sets, and we kind of ballparked it where we thought his set was, because I had to deal with some old notes that weren't mine. And so I was kind of throwing darts in the dark. And so I made 3 pickguard assemblies. We shipped them to him. He used to be a guitar tech, and he kind of mashed that guitar together himself and repainted it because it was sunburst, and he hated sunburst. He wanted a white guitar, and so he repainted it white himself in this New York repair shop. And he actually took the pickguard I sent him, and I labeled them A, B, and C, and he dropped it in his guitar, wired it up, and he goes, "Yeah, that sounds just like it." And he goes, "That's the one," and he sent it back to me, so we measured it and everything. It was like, well, that was easy. Because I was just kind of like guessing.
Sure.
Because like I said, I had old notes. And, but yeah, that was probably one of the closest things I've ever done to just absolutely nailing the tone.
So was that like a brownie scenario where it was like a neck and a body that were just part of the
No,
like?
it was one that he bought, but it was kind of an anomaly. He got it for cheap because one, it was a hardtail, and they weren't as popular as obviously a floating trim Strat. He didn't have a whole lot of money, and he worked in this repair shop, and I think he ended up buying it from the pawn shop next door or something. I can't remember the story, but he got it for cheap, and it was sunburst, and he hated sunburst, absolutely hated it. So he took it all apart, repainted it in the shop with lacquer, and he tried to get it Olympic white, and he might have even gotten a can of Olympic white from the factory or something, because he was a dealer or something, or worked for a dealer. Repainted it, and the neck is super thin on it. It's like 780 at the first fret.
Yeah.
It's like paper thin. 59, yeah, they got pretty thin in 59, and that was just a transition era because they were switching to rosewood. My thoughts on the guitar were one of two things. Body was really thin, so we think that's probably why it was a hardtail, because it was under spec. If you don't have a thick enough body, you put the tram block in there, the springs are going to rub on the cover.
Yep.
And I think that body was too thin to make
A route for a tremolo.
Yeah, a route, a tram, and not have the springs drag. So instead of throwing it away, they'll make it a hardtail.
Yep.
Charge double. and that's how that's how marketing works. That's how you can sell everything.
That's how you make lemonade.
Yeah. See that sawdust? Sweep it up. It's for now Ferry Luther, your dust. That was underneath Yuri's feet when he cobbled the whatever, make some money on that, whatever.
Yeah.
But so there was a thin body and a really thin neck, and I think for most people that was just an undesirable guitar.
Sure.
And it was just, it was the orphan that needed a home, and look what Nile did with it,
Yeah.
He made a couple $1 billion on it.
That was really one of those guitars that you were speaking of where it shouldn't sound that good. I may have even heard you say at one point that there were several things about the guitar, including the Spurzl machine heads, which typically you're not going to want to put on a Stratocaster.
Right.
But maybe that even helped it sound.
It's a thing. And
Part of it.
That guitar sounds like that guitar.
Yeah.
And everyone that purchased that guitar, they love it, man. They absolutely love that guitar.
Well, plus even the pick guard, it's got that heavy plating on it too.
Yeah,
which
it's a thick piece of brass
Yeah.
to begin with, and then chrome plated.
And personally, I've never been a fan of anodized guards, even on a Tele, where this doesn't have stuff wired to it. I just never. It could be just the way I look at it, and it just kind of turns into that. But still, I remember playing that, and it's like this. I shouldn't like the sound of this, but I like the sound of this.
I mean, a lot of that too was the pickup. It was based on a vintage spec.
Yep.
So hand wound pickup again. And you throw all that thin maple neck, and then thin hardtail bridge. It's its own thing. It's its own combination of stuff.
Where do you draw the line as to how much interaction the customer can have with the building of the guitar? Can I say, for example, ask you to send me the body after it's been sanded and grain filled so that I can have it hand painted?
We've done that before. I had a customer that his daughter was an artist, and I did what we call the undercoat, got it flat, and then his daughter was in college at the time, and she painted the guitar body, sent it back to me, and I did the top coat on it. What would be the reason so that you could paint it yourself?
No, not me. I have a copy of the SG Fool, and I want to put the same paint job on an SG, or on a Strat.
It gets sticky because, then you get the guitar, and if you don't like the paint job, then, how do I warranty your paint job?
You can't. That's up to me and the artist.
Oh, well, I mean, that could be something that could be worked out, yeah. There'd definitely be an upcharge in the communication and the shipping and all that stuff. Because my time is money. Anytime I get a request to contact a customer, and I'm pushing for this from the corporate side of things, the way it is right now is you order a Masterbuilt and it kind of the sky's the limit. Each builder has their own parameters of when enough is enough. As far as contact with the customer, and there is occasions where we'll get books of emails. Like you push print on the email, and it's 15 pages long on the criteria for the guitar.
You might have covered this before I got here, but give a guy a little bit of advice and tell me, when do you go Masterbuilt versus getting a Stratocaster Elite and just doing the mods to that you want done?
Basically, if there's not a box in here for you to check on the list of options in the design guide, then it's Masterbuilt. So, custom paint job, it's now Masterbuilt. Custom wiring job outside of what we normally do in the custom shop, that's now Masterbuilt.
Yeah, there's a lot of case-by-case basis with it too. It depends on how, you know, what the actual requests are. You know, so, but what Paul's saying generally is true, so.
And you have the capability to do actual gold plating?
Yes. You mean on the hardware?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We actually have it in stock, all the vintage stuff. Everything we have one of in gold. But we just don't get very many orders for it. But we have it all in stock.
Yeah. Tends to wear off, especially, you know, depending on if somebody starts sweating on it or something, it really starts to kind of dull out.
Yeah, they only pull that one out on rare occasions.
Yeah, yeah. There's a definite elegance to it, though. It's very nice.
I did a guitar for a guy. He lives in somewhere similar in climate to Chicago. One of the pickups had gone dead on it. I don't know what happened. So he sent it back, and I tested the pickup. It just went dead. No rhyme or reason other than that maybe there was a wire that was like already loose, ready to implode. The gold hardware was destroyed on it. And he did play the guitar pretty heavily. It had a lot of wear on it. A lot of dings and dents and scratches. But yeah, the gold hardware was it looked almost silver. It was so tarnished from the weather. And I played the crap out of it.
I have a question.
Okay.
Would Fender accommodate somebody who bought a new old stock guitar, NOS, and then sees the same guitar with a nice relic finish on it? Would they be able to say, Fender, could I send you my guitar and could you relic this the same as you did that one? After the fact?
I would say no, because the paint finish is actually different. We actually finish the guitars in a different manner process for the NOS versus the relic. So we spray the relic stuff thinner. What tends to happen is we've tried to do it before, and it doesn't turn out or look like it should.
It doesn't look real.
And then there's the other issue of depending on how old the guitar is, the lacquer reacts differently because it's starting to decay. Basically, as soon as you're done spraying it, it's on its way to death.
Because I've got a Todd Krause Clapton Blackie, but it's a new old stock finish. And I like the way the one looks with the cigarette burn in it and all that kind of thing.
Oh, that one we couldn't do.
That's your thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that one we couldn't do.
Yeah, and generally when we make it one way that, you know, warranty-wise and everything, it gets a little sticky. It's better just to keep it as that and maybe like order another one more towards how you want it. I mean, I don't want to sound like a sales guy, but that's, you know.
You are a sales guy.
Only because.
Actually, I do want to sound like a sales guy.
Only because, yeah, it is urethane and it's a completely different animal.
Yeah.
The paint process and how it would react and everything. So. The good news is you order it from Todd and he actually will shape the neck and it'll be just like the one you have probably, and just like what Clapton gets.
Yep.
Back up to it, so.
Are you physically making the guitars one at a time, then you start on another one?
Yes, sir.
Or do you have three going that you're kind of dressing?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I kind of batch them together. And what I wanted to do was do all 30 of them at once. But just time won't allow it because of the space that's needed with all I would have to bring racks over. But I did paint them all at the same time. You know, I got them all milled and sanded and prepped and everything all at the same time. It was a ton of work. And then I did all the parts. So I have a box of just these. So I take them over to the Bridgeport and make a jig and drill out the holes so they were all the same in the same spot, and then, you know, do all the patina to the hardware and assemble them, wired them all, and put that box away, and then I did all the bridges, and, you know, so I go through and do all the parts at the same time so they all have the same look and feel. And then the very last bit is to actually take and do the paint work stuff. But it's a lot of back and forth because I can't paint in the shop, I gotta go down to the paint department, which is on the other side of the, you know,
The facility.
400, is it 400,000 square feet? I don't know. What it is.
Something like that, yeah.
I gotta go all the other side of the factory to do all the paint work, so I gotta paint the neck, paint the bodies. And so there's a lot of back and forth and stuff. So it's too hard to do them all at once. So I'm kind of batching them in about like 5 to 7, depending on what my workload is. But now that I have the rest of the year to do it, I'll probably line up all that I can to do them all at once.
I've never seen anybody do the patina on the black pickguard like you have. Is that your own process?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was interesting trying to figure all that stuff out. And we're always learning new stuff. You know, Dale's always trying new things, and he's been having some really, really good results. He dove right in, and I'd say he's kind of at the top of that relic game right now.
Yeah.
As far as putting the most time and attention into it. It's a healthy thing for the shop because it all makes us want to be better at it. So you see one, and then it's like, oh, well, I gotta do better on mine, you know. And
Yeah.
it's just when you think you got it down, you're like, yeah, my stuff looks good, you know.
Yeah.
And then you see something Dale did, and you go back and you just want to, you know, get a big sword and plunge it into the chest. And I suck. But then, you know, he does the same thing. He'll come over and be like, wow, that looks really good. I'm like, huh? Me?
Are you messing with me?
You're the king, you know, not me. You're the king. So it's a healthy push for all of us to stay on our toes and make sure that we're still doing things.
Hey, Mike, we've seen more custom shop accessories and parts coming out of the division, like the paper caps and I think some of the pots or
Right.
switches and so forth.
Uh-huh.
Are we going to see any expansion there in terms of anything new there?
There's some stuff that Mike is working on, Mike Lewis,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure if it's ready. I think he wants to do a NAMM release, but
Yeah.
he's always working on something, you know. And then one of the things to look forward to in 1988, because that was the first year of the their Clapton signature model. That's the 30th anniversary of that. So they're going to be, I think they're going to be revamping and redoing some signature models. I think Ingve's already been contacted, and probably Clapton. So, but there's nothing, I can't really say much more than that at this point.
Yeah.
So, but it's going to be the year of the signature model revamp, I think. So,
Cool.
yeah, the updates, upgrades, differences. So, yeah, so that'll be
This
cool.
is slightly outside the custom shop.
Okay.
But on the N4 noiseless pickups that are on the Elite,
Uh huh.
I had mine customized, and I had to have my pickup covers made by hand because you guys don't provide them in any other color besides white.
Oh yeah.
If we go to the custom shop, are options like that available?
Not on the N4.
Yeah, that's a custom size on that. So, and since we don't actually make that pickup in there, they're just going off of what of the covers that are actually made for it. If marketing decides to expand the color
You
options,
guys
they'll
are
do
nice
that.
enough to give me the
So,
template so I could have my own jig made.
Yeah.
I think those are all injection molded.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a mold made and I had some made.
Wow. What color did you get?
I needed
Just-
black for what I was doing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, did you just get one set made, or were they able to just do
No,
one?
after I paid for the setup and everything, I got 6 sets made and I got 5 still sitting at home.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Do they say N4 on them, or are they just the dimension of that?
No, it's just the black,
Yeah.
but it fits.
Right. That's cool. Yeah. So I'm curious. So did they charge you a lot for it, or to do all those sets of pickups, the 6
$15
sets?
bucks a set after the
Yeah.
setup price.
Oh, okay. Was that like $80 or something, or?
They charged me $50 to make the mold.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's cheap.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not bad at all. So.
But the only other way to do it would be to do that 3D printing stuff, but that stuff ends up being kind of brittle and
Yeah.
it's probably not going to last like a PVC-based plastic.
Yeah.
It's injection molded.
Yep.
Yeah, we have no control over what the line does. We
Yeah.
stay out of their yard, and we hope that they stay out of ours. Sometimes they'll come over and steal stuff from us, but you know, it's all family, so Because it wants to borrow the car to
Yeah,
go
you
out for the
can't
night,
sue
we
him.
can't say no.
Yeah.
It's still our car though.
Very cool.
Could we get a round of applause for these gentlemen
Yeah.
who came to visit?
Oh, thank you, Paul. Well, thank you.